Hi everyone, I'm Sadaf and I'm delivering some sessions for the Shaman Women's Centre's online programme all about mindfulness. We've covered so many sessions over the last few months on various topics. Last week we looked at how to declutter your mind, part one of the declutter series, and today we're looking at part two, which is decluttering your home or your workspace. So if you want to find out more, feel free to follow Shaman Women's Centre on their Instagram and Facebook accounts for more up-to-date information and other resources too. So last week, as I mentioned, I briefly mentioned how a cluttered mind or a cluttered home or workspace can really impact the mind and essentially how we function on a day-to-day basis. And today what we're going to do, we're going to look at how to declutter and organise your space. And if you've already decluttered, organised your space, that's fantastic. Or if you want to learn a few more tips, that's fantastic. And please feel free to share your tips in the comments below. I'd love to hear about your opinions on decluttering. So what I'd like you to do for a moment is think about a time when you've tried to work or even think or even relax in a disorganised space. Did you feel creative or productive or even relaxed? And I'm sure the answer here is probably no. Not as productive or relaxed as you usually are when everything around you is organised. So what we're beginning to see are the lovely signs of spring around us. Spring is a season of change. We're seeing new leaves and blossoming trees, and I'm really loving that right now. It really cheers me up. We're seeing flowers growing, daffodils and a few other lovely flowers shooting all around us, shooting up from the ground. And it's a fresh start. It gives us that sense of feeling and positivity. And that's why at this time of year, in this particular season, people choose to do that good old spring cleaning that we all talk about. Perhaps you've already started that. I've kind of started dabbling in a bit of spring cleaning, so I think it's something that inspires us when spring comes along. So spring cleaning or decluttering could be a great choice for keeping your brain healthy. Why? Well, for a start, clutter can really affect our brain. More mess means more stress. Clutter can affect your ability to focus, generally in day-to-day life. It can affect your sleep patterns too, and your anxiety levels can go up. It can also trigger maladaptive coping strategies that make you more likely, for example, to grab some junk food or unhealthy options if things aren't organised. And it can make us less productive, or it can help us to really not get on top of things really. So before we proceed, let's talk a little bit about the brain. So your brain actually likes organisation and structure. When it constantly sees disorganisation, when those images go through our visual periphery, what it does, it affects the way our brain perceives situations, and it becomes harder for us to focus generally. So just seeing clutter around distracts your brain enough to some extent, potentially reducing your working memory, the memory that you need to get things done. So researchers found that clearing away clutter at work or in the home environment actually improved focus. It also increased productivity and made it easier for the brain to process those huge amounts of information that the brain is able to store. Our brains are probably the best computers. Imagine that the high-speed computer in the world, nothing compares to your brain. Your brain downloads so much information per millisecond. It's unbelievable, and that shows you how amazing our brain actually is. I just wanted to ask a question. Did you know, and I find this really interesting, that clutter has negative effects on our mental and our physical health too? It can leave you suffering from high levels of anxiety and stress, or even get you more down in that depressed part of the spectrum. Studies have shown that cortisol, which is one of the stress hormone levels, are higher in people who have a cluttered home or a cluttered desk or a cluttered environment. And what happens, it can end up causing chronic clutter, in terms of we have too much clutter around us, and it can leave our body constantly in that fight or flight mode. And that's due to those high level of adrenaline and cortisols, which are stress hormones, which is really can put a strain and impact our mind and body in so many ways, which aren't necessarily good for us. And also, what science has found and research has found is clutter is also linked to unhealthy eating patterns. So, a messy environment, for example, can encourage you to eat more unhealthily. Because when we're not organised, the first things we usually grab are the unhealthy things. We're already worried and anxious and stressed, so we grab those things, the first things, and we've all been prone to that. I've done that, and I'm sure some of you are nodding away there too. And these unhealthy foods, as I mentioned before, can really negatively impact our health in so many ways. Research has also shown that cluttered home and work environments take a toll on our mental well-being and our overall health. So if you're thinking of skipping that spring cleaning this year, think again. Do it for your brain, for your mind, for your mind, body and soul. It can only be good, right? So the main point I'm trying to elaborate here is when our mind is disorganised, and it's also reflected on the area around us, the spaces we live in and work in. Simply, this applies the other way around too. So when our working or living spaces are not organised, this can actually aggravate and impact our clarity and calm that we all seek to find in our busy, busy lives. So, just for a moment, let's look at that extreme end of the scale. Now, we've all watched those programs where people try to forcibly organise a hoarder's home. It might be friends or neighbours or partners, because they simply can't cope anymore, and they feel that they're trying to help this person who's been hoarding things in their life. Now, the question I have here is, why is it that the person who hoards finds it so hard emotionally and from a psychological perspective? I've always watched these documentaries with interest because I feel that on this extreme end of the scale, people can associate items with memories and feel that they may indeed lose these memories potentially if they end up throwing things out, or they have to feel they've got to keep them in plain sight, otherwise they may somehow lose these memories. So when their stress bucket, imagine your brain is your stress bucket, is full and overflowing, often that's reflected in their home environment as well. So it's really interesting to see, for me as a wellbeing specialist, to see how hoarders keep things and how that affects the way they remember memories and how they perceive life generally. On most occasions, people who are hoarding aren't even aware of this, and I actually think it's quite a harsh approach to force hoarders to throw things away just like that. It's very drastic, and I think that can actually impact their mental health, because I think it's about using different approaches, which we'll slightly touch upon soon. So on this extreme end of the scale, hoarding becomes an OCD, an obsessive compulsive disorder, and it's a condition where people are suffering from anxiety, high levels of anxiety. They fear in some way or form, and they fear a lack of control in their lives. But this can affect people differently in so many ways. So, and I sincerely believe that people can be helped who are suffering from OCDs, whatever they may be. It doesn't, not necessarily, we're just using hoarding as an example. So that's why certain therapies such as hypnotherapy or other talking therapies are really helpful for OCD sufferers to find that inner calm and peace in their lives and get them back to that point where they're now in control of their lives, because it can get to a point where their relationships suffer or their social life's impacted, and this can lead to extreme isolation and loneliness. And the great thing is there is help out there, and I've seen clients who've had OCDs of fear of contamination, for example, especially during COVID, which has exacerbated their problems. But with lots of help and support, they're able to slowly and surely move forward, begin to gain that organisation back into their lives. Now, although that's at the extreme end of the scale, let's look at a few tips on how we can create balance in our lives. So, clutter and disorganisation can really affect, for example, our energy levels. I notice it. When things are cluttered or messy, I feel drained and fatigued and tired and demotivated. Our thought processes and our space is affected. So, by decluttering and organising your space, you'll be doing the following and you'll derive the following benefits. So, decluttering means examining your life and memories associated with items, going through all your possessions and deciding what's important to you and discarding the rest. It also means letting go of things that no longer serve a purpose in your life so that you can make room for what's important for you. Now, isn't that something that appeals to us all? Wouldn't we all want to be in that situation? But it's not always as easy to do that. But it's about making that start, that small step, and slowly together we can find that control back in our lives again. So, organising means that everything has a home, everything has its place. So it can be easily found or accessed and used, and the most important thing, put back in its place. Everything should have its place, ideally. So once you've created a space that contains things that you only really need, it truly begins to bring us joy in our life or contentment because we are organised, and in terms of where our items are. At the same time, this reflects our brain, and our brain will feel more organised and not panicked at where everything is. It's terrible when we're looking for things and we just can't find them. But when everything has its place, how much time does it save? How much stress does it save and anxiety? Well, a lot. So, with that, let's share a few tips on how to declutter and organise your living space, or apply this to your office space too. Number 1, book out the time. So the first thing we need to do is to schedule a time for decluttering and organising your space. Doesn't matter where that space is. And I'd love to hear what you think about this, if any ways that you've used or methods or strategies you've used. It would be great because you might be helping someone else who's thinking along the same lines of, as in, where do I start? So please share your comments below. I'd love to hear them. Now, there are so many different scheduling approaches or time or slotting in time for decluttering approaches that you can choose from. Here are just a few. Now, you can declutter, for example, and organise in 15-minute slots or sessions. So quick little organise. If you, for example, are using your desk. So when I finish recording, I'm going to pack everything and put everything in its place. So when I come back to my desk, again, everything's going to be ready for its next task. So that's what I do. But I do a bit of mix and match of all the following. Or you can set aside perhaps an hour a day to declutter. Perhaps when all the kids have gone to bed, or if it's quieter, and that's if you're not too tired. Or first thing early in the morning, whatever works for you. But as long as you show up and you do it, that is the most important thing. Another thing, this is really important. Tackle one area at a time, and please resist the urge to start decluttering multiple areas at once. I've done it. It's really not good. The house ends up in an absolute utter mess. So, for example, you pick up something from your living room, you're sort of decluttering your living room, and you think, oh, that goes in the bedroom. Then you go upstairs to the bedroom, and you think, oh, I'll put that down over there, that book. And then you end up picking something else up, and then you end up distracted and going through your cupboards in your room. Yes, I've done that before, and I wonder if you've done that. If you have, I'd love to know how it made you feel, because I can imagine. I'm laughing about it now, but you don't end up getting anything done. So make sure you can see your schedule. Pop it in your diary or on your wall planner if you have one, or on your fridge. Just as you would penciling an appointment to the doctors, or picking up the kids from school, or dropping them off, you can do the same thing. Pencil in, organise my desk, or organise the kitchen cupboard, or organise the bookshelf, for example. Just pop it in, because the more we see it, the more our brain is able to register that, and it begins the process of reminding ourselves that this is something I need to do on top of, because if it's out of sight, out of mind, we no longer see it as a priority. So remember, How you choose to do it depends entirely on what works best for you and your daily life, because all our lives are different. We all have different responsibilities, but a bit of decluttering and a bit of organisation doesn't harm anyone. In fact, you can derive multiple benefits from it, mentally, emotionally, physically, so many, getting a better night's sleep as well. So pencil it into your diary. Scheduling your decluttering is key. If you already started doing that, please pop it down below. I'd love to know how that's going. Tip number 2, really think about the purpose. Think about the purpose of each room in your home or space in your office, for example. We walk around your home. I'm going to give you a little activity if you get a chance. Walk around your home and decide what activities you would like to carry out in each room, as well as the mood you like to create in each room. So here are 6 examples for your home. And I know, first of all, before I proceed, I just want to say I totally understand how hard it's been during lockdown. Our homes have become temporary offices, schools, and our living spaces have all become blurred into one. And it's been a struggle for all of us in a different way. And I found that my space has become more cluttered as a result. But hopefully, with lockdown easing, we can get back to some kind of order in our own lives. And I think that's what's going to really help us propel to positivity and propel to getting our goals done and getting that balance that we require. So let's look at the living room. So the living room is essentially a place for the family to gather. The mood you may want here is to create is something perhaps along the lines of comfort and connectivity. So think about, as you walk around your house or your living room to start with, what kind of mood you want to create. Let's move on to the bathroom now. You might want to create a serene environment in your bathroom. So you might want to serve it as a temporary, small-scale, luxurious retreat or spa. And remember, it doesn't matter how small the room is. Candles maybe, pop a few candles safely in the bathroom, only for you to use. Obviously, remember to blow out that candle when you've used it. It's a fire hazard. Or under sink spaces to put away your products, so you don't have them lined up everywhere. Or if you don't have the space, perhaps find something, a box or something, or some kind of basket so you can pop everything in nicely, neatly away. And I just want to point out, it really doesn't matter how big or small your bathroom is. It's actually about how you use the space, how you utilise the space. You want to look for probably space-saving storage solutions. And if you have a little Google online, there are stores that provide those things. Now, let's take our virtual walk to the kitchen. So again, it depends on the size of your kitchen and your family requirements. It varies for each person. So when we prepare meals, for example, more mindfully, we talked about that in one of our sessions, eating and preparing meals more mindfully. We really want a mindful space to enjoy the process of creating that meal or snack, whether it's for us or for family, etc. So think of how you could organise your room, your kitchen in a more mindful way, to help you enjoy the whole process of creating food. Because what we're doing is we're forcing ourselves to be in the present, not quickly cook and then off we go. We're trying to take time where we can, and even if it's a quick meal, even if it's a pack of noodles you're making, we enjoy the process. Now let's move on to the bedroom. So, what do you want to feel when you retire or start preparing for bed, for night? Think about the colours, the textures, etc. Would you want pastels in your room to feel a bit more calmer? Or are you perhaps more of a bold colours in the bedroom person to suit your personality? Perhaps invest in a few candles again, or lamps to change the lighting to reflect the mood you're in. And you can switch off your main light and try a little lamp. For example, I love my Himalayan salt lamp. I have 2. I have one in my living room and I have one in my bedroom. And I really love it because it gives off actually positive ions in your room. And some research suggests that it actually increases your mood and provides a more positive It gives off these ions that make you feel better in yourself. And it really casts actually a really lovely calm light into my bedroom, and it helps me to relax for the day, for the evening, shall I say. Right, tip number 3. So if you live, for example, in a smaller home, then perhaps you can think about how a room can have several different purposes, because not everybody lives in a big house. You may live in a self-contained flat, for example, or a bedsit. And some of you may live in larger homes, and you have a specific room for specific activities. So take a good look around that space if you're in a smaller property, and perhaps identify the areas that you can create for yourself. These areas will become a focus for specific items, for certain activities. For example, you may have a bookcase or a bookshelf and have a few books on there. So why not pop a beanbag there, or a comfy little chair with some cushions there, maybe a vase of flowers as well to help you feel relaxed and enjoy reading, something along those lines, whatever works for you. And then what will happen, you will be able to create a good space, a decluttered space for you to really get creative and productive and relaxed. Now, your desk area, perhaps invest in some paper trays if you haven't already. Or, on your desk you may have your laptop or your PC or your iPad, for example, or other devices. Maybe get a little plant or desktop water feature perhaps, but if it's something that doesn't encourage you to go to the toilet, some people find, I'm actually looking at getting a nice little desk, a fountain, a really small one, because I don't want it to distract me, but I want it to make me feel nice and relaxed while I work. Tip number 4, decide where to start. So start with the room perhaps that you use the most, or the space that you use the most. So what you want to do is start beginning to clear away anything visible, visible clutter. Make sure everything has its place. Everything that is around needs to be there is there. And anything that doesn't need to be there, ask yourself why it's there. Now, as you cleared off this visible clutter, for example, perhaps consider moving on to drawers, shelves, or cupboards, or something along those lines. And this way you begin to regain control in organising things more effectively, and you're implementing a stage-by-stage or step-by-step approach. Remember, baby steps, because if we overwhelm ourselves, we've all done it. Right, today I'm going to organise the house. That's all very well and great, but is it actually achievable when we have a busy family? Probably not, because something's going to give way. Dinner time comes, you have to stop. Lunchtime comes, you have to stop. So start small, take baby steps, and you'll be amazed at how clearing those small spaces can provide so much calm and serenity. And again, now repeat this process for your second most used room and your third most used room or space. But remember to concentrate at one room at a time. It will really help. Number 5, organising your items. So you're going through all of your possessions, imagine one by one. For each item, you're going to ask yourself the following question. So you might want to grab a pen and paper and pause the video at this point to write these down as you're decluttering. I find them so helpful. So the first one, do I use this item on a daily basis? If no, why is it here? Does this item make me feel positive or bring me a sense of happiness or joy? If no, why is it here? If yes, that's fantastic. Do you have another version of that item that is better, and perhaps you don't need, for example, multiple remote controls? I'm using remote control as an example. When you've got one that incorporates everything, perhaps look at decluttering your remote controls. I'm sure people have more than one. Have you used this item in the last 6 months? If not, are you really likely to use this? I was a bit of a hoarder, a little bit of a hoarder, collector, shall I say. I used to like to keep everything from school, everything from college. Then I thought to myself, okay, I don't need to keep every little thing. I'll put a few things away from memories. Then, what I do regularly, every 6 months, and my next declutter is due in summer. So I start to think, have I used this last 6 months? For example, this pair of trousers or or a jumper. Well, if not, then I'm giving it to someone else or donating it to charity, because there's no point it's sitting there and cluttering up space, and it could be useful for somebody else. Does your item have sentimental value? Well, if it does, is it in the right place? Could it get damaged or broken? If it's not in the right place, then find its own lovely place where it will be safe and you can keep it close to you and value. Now, another question. In life, we're trying to find out who we are. So would the person that you're trying to become own this item? Is it something that's been given to you and it's not really who you are? Well, think about perhaps how it could be of use to somebody else, maybe, and think about is it who you're trying to become? So now, after we've done those questions with each item, there's another stage. So create 6 categories. You want to get 6 categories and assign a cardboard box for each category and label them. The categories are as follows. So label each box. So for example, one box could be this. On the label you would write this belongs in another room. So everything that belongs in another room, pop it in there. Next box, this needs to be fixed or cleaned. Pop those items into that box. Now, this third box will be given away, sold or donated. So you pop all those things into there. Another box, this is not mine and needs to be returned to its owner. I'm sure we all have little things that we've forgotten to give back to our friends or family members. And then you have the maybe box. So if you can't bear to get rid of something because you might need it later, pop it into the maybe box. Once you've allocated all your groups in your boxes, decide what you're going to do with each item. So here are some groups of items you might consider for the next stage of decluttering. You might want to pop your receipts in one, or your tools in another, or your bills if they're not paperless. Many people, receive paperless bills now. Magazines, newspapers if you still use them. But most people browse online anyway. Cosmetic, do you have too many? Hair products and personal grooming for the gentleman. Do we have too many things, or do we not have enough perhaps? Books as well, medicines and vitamins, office supplies, dishes, cups and glasses. List is endless really. So as you go through each category, decide whether it's something that you will put back or is it going to go into one of those 6 boxes. Now remember, the items that you use frequently should be nearby and accessible because you don't want to put them far away. Remember, you need to store items where they are used. So if you frequently, for example, use a pair of scissors in your office, keep them in the drawer nearby there. And don't leave them around the kitchen or in the living room or on the banisters at the top of the stairs, for example. If that is an issue because you've got a big family, buy a few pairs, leave one as a craft scissors, one as a kitchen scissors, and one as whatever you want to use it for, hairdressing scissors. Now, book lovers out there, if you come across a book you haven't finished reading, don't sit down to read it while you're decluttering. Like me, you will get distracted. Because remember, as humans, we love to procrastinate and we get distracted all the time. So keep at it. We've got this. We can declutter things together. So if perhaps you come across an unfinished project, remind yourself that this is not the time to finish it. Just mark it down somewhere to do for another time on a rainy day. So tip number 6, storage solutions. Once you've decided what items you're going to keep, look around the house for boxes that you can use. Perhaps you have some old boxes that have just filled with junk, so you could reuse them for something else. Or go shopping, treat yourself for some new storage solutions. And there's so many options out there online and in your supermarkets. I'd love to hear about any sort of storage solutions that you found great to use, or any tips for anyone who's watching this today. I personally use boxes or baskets that I can pick up for a reasonable price because I'm on a budget from my local supermarket, and some are stackable too and help me keep organised. Some are open baskets, some have lids, some are stackable. So have a look, see what works for you. Label and find a place. The next day you've got your boxes now, you've got your storage solutions. Label and find a place to store those boxes depending on how often you need to access them. It could be an under bed zip bags. You can get a zip bag, it doesn't have to be a box as such. Put it somewhere where you can just pull it out if you need to and hide it away when you don't need it. So, lastly, follow these small rules to keep your home or workspace in order. You might want to grab a pen and paper here and write this down. Number 1, if you take it out, put it back. Number 2, if you open it, close it. Number 3, if you drop it, remember to pick it up. And number 4, if you take it off, hang it up. 4 simple but straightforward tips. So, I'm going to finish with a quote today. I hope you found today useful. It's actually inspired me to do a few extra things. I'd love to hear your comments below, so feel free to do so. So, I'm going to leave you with a quote. Clutter isn't just the stuff in your cupboards. It's anything that gets between you and the life you want to be living. So, with that, thank you for joining me today. For the next session, we'll be looking at work hard and play hard and how we can provide that work-life balance. So take care and look forward to seeing you soon. Bye-bye.